Standard 5 for Math 7 is called solving equations. But before we can begin solving equations, we have to define what an equation is. An equation is a way of stating that two different expressions have equal values. Here's a basic equation that states that 2 plus 2 is equal to 4. Even though both sides of the equation look different, they maintain the same value. In this equation, the equal sign is implying that 25 on the left side has the same value as a plus 8 on the right side. Even though we might not know what a is right now, we can use this equation to help us figure out what our missing value is. This equation might look a bit more complicated, but the equal sign is still implying that 16x minus 5x has the same value as 32 minus 10. Even in this long, complicated equation, the equal sign is still implying that the value of x on the left side is equal to the entire value of negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4 times ac, and all of that's divided by 2a. When thinking about equations, it can often be helpful to think about a balance. In this picture, we have a large box on the left side and a small box on the right side. Despite the difference in sizes of the boxes, the balance is still equal, implying that the balance has the same weight on the left side as the right side. So if in the big box on the left side there's a 2-pound weight, it means on the right side the small box also contains a 2-pound weight, even though their appearances are different. When solving equations, we must always follow the golden rule, which states that we must do the same thing to both sides. Again, our balance can help us explain why this rule is so important. As before, we stated that the left side might have had a 2-pound weight, and that means that the right side would also have a 2-pound weight. If I go and add an additional 5 pounds to the left side, but I do not add an additional 5 pounds to the right side, our balance is no longer equal. In order to keep it equal, I would need to also add 5 pounds to the right side, making both sides have a total of 7 pounds. Throughout this standard, we'll learn multiple methods about how to solve equations, but the general goal for this standard is always to get the variable on a side by itself, meaning that we know what the value of the unknown variable is. So in this equation here, we see 5 plus x equals 8, which means that 5 plus x has to have the same value as 8. So to solve this equation, we want to figure out what value can we give x that will make that statement true. There are multiple ways we can think about this. One is to think about 5 plus what is going to equal 8. And when we do that, we can maybe use the counting up method and think 5, 6, 7, 8. I had to count up 3, so x would equal 3. Using this same idea, we can try and figure out what value of x in this equation is going to make this a true statement, where 3 plus x has the same value as negative 2. Now you might look at this equation and think about, well, I'm adding, but how is it that my answer is going to end up being smaller than the number I started with? And this is because x can be a negative value. If we took 3 and we made x any positive number, it would have to equal a number larger than 3. And since negative 2 is smaller than 3, we know that we'll actually be adding a negative number. So thinking about adding negative numbers, one strategy might be to think 3 plus what negative number is going to equal a negative 2. Well, if we do this where we think about counting backwards on a number line, if we start at 3 and we move to the left until we get to negative 2, we would have had to move 5 times, which means that x would equal a negative 5 because we would move negative 5 spaces to the left.